That's a goodly number of participants for already. Wow.
We've got 675 registered.
It's a hot subject.
Welcome to what PPO executives pray that you guys never discover. I call it the nuclear option that forces higher fees, even with some PPOs who told you that's impossible. We just can't pay anymore. So some will tell you that, and actually they're all going to tell you that. And many of them, it turns out, are lying. So the insurance companies don't want you guys to know about the what I call the nuclear option. When I say they fear it, this is real. This is very real. I was talking to a PPO expert this afternoon about this, a guy who has worked with a lot of our members on negotiations and different things, and he said this is just the best time ever to do what we're talking about tonight. Now, there are a lot of people who've never been to GEMS webinars before, so formal introduction or semi-formal. I'm your host. My name is Dr. Tom Orant, aka the GEMS guy or Tom, and I promise you're going to love what you're about to discover tonight. So welcome to what I call the GEMS Underground, what insurance companies don't want you to know, the hidden leverage that you have as a provider that I guarantee that the executives in the insurance companies, especially some of these PPOs who they literally are desperately trying to conceal what we're talking about tonight from dental practices. I call it the nuclear option. It is a very simple strategy. It is so simple that it'll blow your mind. It forces PPOs to reconsider their maximum allowable fees. It doesn't always work, so I'll explain why it works and why it doesn't work, when it works, when it doesn't work, and what you need to do about it before you use it. I'm going to get into excruciating details so that you can use it by the time we're done. Why they've been lying about fee limits, the deception behind the take it or leave it. In other words, we can't do any better. I heard one dentist, he said, this is yesterday, he said to me on Facebook, he said somebody gave him a fee increase of $1 for all procedures. It would have been more respectful just to say to the guy, I can't raise your fees than to say, I'll raise you a dollar. Anyway, so that's what they did. By the way, I love that. That's the PPO executives. So these are our maximum allowable fees. They've conditioned to believe that their fees are fixed and non-negotiable. And some of them are non-negotiable, but many of them are negotiable. We can't pay higher than this. Convenient fiction. Take it or leave it. We can't pay you more. That ultimatum relies on your fear of losing all your patients if you leave. Truth is, many of them can pay more. Many of them can pay a lot more if they choose to. And we'll talk about how to do that tonight. As I said earlier, it does not work with every insurance company. And do not do this unless you're following the warnings I'm going to give you later, because otherwise it's going to backfire on you in a bad way. That's pretty much it. I'm going to be, as far as intro goes, I'm going to be showing you how to force them into a corner. Some of them where they have a choice, either pay or lose you. So you got to be ready really to walk away at that point. And that's part of what we'll talk about tonight as well. The only way to know which ones are actually able and not able, unable, and you'll understand that in a minute, but the only way to know is to be in a strong enough financial position, patient flow position, recall retention, case acceptance. Everything has to be kicking on all cylinders where you can say to yourself, yeah, I'm going to just tell them, you got to pay me 90% or 95% of my full fee. Now, they may or may not do that. And we'll get into the three options of what they may say to you. And there are three things that they said to me when I did this. So we'll get into that as well. But you need to be in that position. You can't just bluff your way through this. All right. So I just missed a slide. There we go. This is the crisis that they are facing. The crisis that they didn't want you to know about. They don't want you to know about. PPOs are aiming for roughly one dentist per 1,200 to 2,000 patients. According to ADA Health Policy Institute, 26% of dentists dropped one or more PPO networks, and 53%, it was more than 50%, were planning on dropping another one within the next year. That would be 2025, where we are right now. So whereas if you looked a couple decades ago when I did this, everybody was getting in and everybody said you can't get out because everybody's going in. It is starting to go the other way. They have something called network adequacy requirements, which is the short version of that is many states, not all, but many states insurance commissioners and legislators mandated legally that if they're to be practicing, not providing insurance, licensed to provide insurance in their state, that they have to hit minimum requirements as far as this, what that number is. And it might be different in each area, but the point is they do have minimum numbers and they're really concerned. They're desperate to keep providers because of it. Now, let's say you're in a state that doesn't have those laws. It doesn't make any difference. They're also desperate to keep those numbers correct, those ratios correct, because if the employers hear back from their employees, let's say you get an employer that has 500 potential patients or employees, and they all complain, I can't get in. There's only two guys in the area taking them, and they're booked out for 6 months, and then it really not taking new. These guys are at risk of losing large employers, even small employers. So network adequacy, PPO executives nightmare, and that's what happens when they lose too many providers. It means to them they've got to maintain that minimum dentist to enrollee ratio. Now, it's different in every geographic area. So I might be in Framingham, Massachusetts, and meanwhile in Rhode Island, 20 minutes away from me, 30 minutes away from me, there might be a different ratio. And so it might work where I am or vice versa with one company or another. And there is some behemoth like Delta that might be the least likely to play the game anyway. Maybe they just don't care because of their lobbies in Washington and their money. But they are required to submit annual filings to the state regulators, insurance commissioner, proving that they have enough providers. And if they can't meet the requirements, the state could, as I said, disapprove the insurance product, essentially putting them out of business in that state for their product. Not good for them, good for us. Very cool for us. That's me reading the PPO manifesto. So this is how I stumbled onto this thing. It was on a lark. So of course I had been treating patients for years at stupid fees. By the way, what I considered stupid fees was back in the day, my practices, we were losing 20, 25%. And I was like, why am I losing a quarter of my income? Today, you guys are losing, if you're losing 20, that's pretty low. A lot of you guys are giving up to some of the PPOs 35%. We've got a few of our Wealth Accelerator members who report losing 45%, but most of you guys are in the 30 to 35% range. A third of the work you do, you can't get paid for, which is just ludicrous. So the nuclear option was an accident. Here's how it happened. I had already dropped all of my PPOs in Framingham and it had become 100% fee for service. I did not even consider or think about trying this. It didn't even exist, the thing I'm showing you tonight. So I was 100% fee for service in Framingham. So I was ready to begin dropping the first of the 15 plans in my Worcester office, which I took over for my dad when he died of cancer, and he asked me to take over the practice to help my mom out. And I got it in really good financial position. I got the new patient flow up. I got the recall retention really high, cut no shows. We had three GPs and 2 specialists. We were all getting much better case acceptance. We were cooking. And I said to Elizabeth, my wife, I said, you know what? I'm ready to drop. And I named a couple of the plans I was ready to drop based on a lot of KPIs, key performance indicators. I'm ready to drop this one and that one. Let's try something. And I wrote the nuclear letter. It's very short, very sweet. And I wrote the nuclear letter. And I'll give you the punchline in a minute on what they said. As I said, there's 3 different answers. But what happened blew me away. So this is the nuclear option revealed. Simple letter, professionally written. It's not mean or anything. Basically what it says is pay me dramatically higher fees or goodbye. It's an ultimatum. It's not a bluff. You got to be ready to walk away. It basically says, hey, I've appreciated our relationship, yada, yada, yada. And at this point, I can no longer afford to deliver uncompromised care at the fees that you're paying us. Please see Schedule A. And I would always attach a Schedule A, which was the fees. We'll get into that a little bit more detail in a bit. And that Schedule A, by the way, was anywhere from 90 to 95% of my full fees. I said, if you can pay us these fees, then we'll stay. If you can't, then please consider this my 30-day, 60-day, whatever that company required notice. And then we're out. And yeah, it was just nuts. So this is what the PPOs are looking at. Profit, gold coins, us on the other side. The more profit they make, the more they toss us out the top of the scale there. They're desperate to keep providers, though. So that's why this works. And losing us hurts their network. It's also bad, as I said earlier, for their reputation with the employers. And so with some of them, your leverage is bigger than you think. Now, it would be very cool, but I'll tell you ahead of time, it doesn't exist because they keep a huge secret of it. It would be very cool to get inside information inside a PPO boardroom and know exactly what their stats are. But as far as I know, the only 2 entities that know those stats are the PPO executives and the insurance commissioner in that state. Now, so the way that I did it, basically you just have to put yourself in a good position where you could walk away, and worst case scenario, if everybody left, you could still survive fine. Now, they're not all going to leave if you do it right, and you'll be pleasantly surprised how many stay and come back if you do it just right. So we'll talk more about that tonight. We already talked about financial strength. Only deploy this when you are financially ready to lose every patient in that plan. You're not going to lose every patient in the plan, but it's not a bluff, and you got to be in a position where you're secure enough that if that did happen, no worries. You want to secure multiple additional revenue streams within the practice. We'll talk about what some of those are later. I have yet to run across a practice, and I've been coaching for 30-something years and 25 years at the high level. I've yet to run across a practice that was either small and not doing great or huge and just crushing it, who didn't have a few $100,000 they could go up easily with various things that they just were walking over dollars to pick up pennies. So revenue optimization is really important. I've already said a few times, this isn't a bluff. You got to be ready to go. All right. No-show profit recovery. So here's some of the things. No-show profit recovery. The hidden revenue leak. So this $145,000 is not just out of thin air. I'm not going to do the math tonight, but this is based on math that I've done 1,000 times with members, where we walk through how many no-shows or last-minute cancellations do you have in doctor's column each week? How many no-shows or last-minute cancellations that you have in hygiene? Now, this is that you can't fill. Not that, we refilled that with somebody else, that you actually had an empty chair because you couldn't fill it. Either they called you too late or they totally disrespected you and didn't call you at all and they just no-showed. So that 145 is based only on 1 no-show per day per doctor. One doctor office, 1 no-show per day. So, and only working 4 days a week, and 1 in hygiene. So you're looking at 4 to 6 a week in hygiene and 4 in doctor's column. And based on the average production of a doctor and on a hygienist, it's about 145. Your fees may be more. You may be more highly productive, which you probably are, because I used a very low fee for doctor productivity just to be very reasonable. You're probably close closer to 200,000 loss if you have a small number of cancellations and no-shows. All right, reduction by 50% is pretty simple. Following our protocols, it's pretty simple. That's something you want to work on. It's a simple priority. You want to cut the empty chairs in half, and you will, let's say you increase $70,000 in money that was regained or revenue gained because you had cut your no-shows in half and you didn't have a huge number of no-shows. For offices that have 2 doctor no-shows or last-minute cancellations in a day, and or that work 5 days a week, and or have 7 or 8 hygiene no-shows or more, if you have multiple hygienists, you're looking at 200,000 to 300,000 loss. So the good news is the opportunity is even bigger. And by the way, 85 to 10% of what you recover, because now somebody's in the chair, is profit. And the simple reason behind that is because all your fixed overhead gets paid either way, whether they show up or not. Doesn't make any difference. Another opportunity that we see is missed a lot is what I call the silent fracture gold mine. And it's critical for the patients too. It's not just money. It's critical for the patients. Asymptomatic deep dentin fractures, the kind that end up with catastrophic failure. Now, there's not a lot of them. It's not like, oh, if you start really performing this properly, you'll find that, sorry, I was reading in the chat, somebody had a problem with audio. Jody Wrench, you can hear me, right? Jody? Yeah. I was like, okay, maybe nobody can hear me. Okay. Yeah, do try. You probably can't hear me say this, but do try from the phone. All right. So you're not going to find a ton of them, but what my Wealth Accelerator members have reported is an average of 1 or 2 per week per 35-hour hygienist. Now, why per hygienist? It's not that the hygienists are cutting crowns, but it's done in recall exams. So if you get a 35-hour hygienist, typically you'll find 1 or 2 a week. Is that a big deal? Yeah. If you add, let's say, 1.5 to 2 buildup in crowns per week, even at PPO fees, you're looking at a $70,000 or $80,000 bump. So it's significant. Now, if your fees are better than that, you're looking at a $100,000 bump. If you have 2 hygienists, could be a $200,000 bump. Again, it's not a lot of teeth, but it's a few more crowns every week. The anatomy of the letter, as I said before, it's professional. I attach a fee schedule. I give them a clear deadline. And delivery, I didn't talk about, so I'm going to just stop on this for a second. This is crucial. Anytime you send anything to anybody, not just insurance companies, but anything that is considered a legal document, and by the way, this letter that you're demanding higher fees, or please accept this as our 60-day, whatever, however many days, that's a legal document. Send it FedEx signature required, or however you want, they get signature, so you have proof of delivery. You got to have proof of delivery because they'll deny everything. Yeah, the nuclear letter, the demand letter. Before we finish tonight, I'm going to share a link. So that's what the slide says, but I neglected to actually grab that link. So during the Q&A, I will get this for you and I'll give it to everybody for free. But when I wrote this slide, I forgot to put the link somewhere. I think I forgot to put the link somewhere. Anyway, I could have put it in my notes, but it's not in my notes. All right, I will get it for you during the Q&A. We'll have to take a 2-minute pause during Q&A to find it. But yeah, so the first half of it, the top half of it is just instructions. The bottom half of it is the letter. So you can see it's super short. Let's see. Worst case scenario, all your patients leave. Isn't going to happen, but be ready for that so that if it did happen, you'd still be okay financially because otherwise you don't want to be doing that. And that's what we did. And it was pretty cool. So some insurance companies paid the fees that I requested, which meant that they were desperate to avoid losing any more providers in my area of my Worcester office. Many offered me something close. Oh, we can't do that, which was maybe 10% off of my full fee. We could do 15% on it, whatever. So they were within 5%. I was like, oh yeah, okay. So I stayed with them for a bit. And others said, dear Dr. Ornt, go pound sand. Not in those words, but they basically said, yeah. So there is a third. Now, what you put on Schedule A is really important. You probably already know this, but if you don't, write it down. You don't want to give them a list of every procedure that you do in your office. You don't want to give them, and you want to make sure that you only give them about 25 or 30 roughly maximum. And you only want to, this isn't on the slide, but you only want to ask them, you only want to list codes for things that you do most often. Oh, it is on the slide right there. Because if you don't, what they're going to do is they're going to have their statistician look through and see what your stats were and find out, okay, so he asked for these 30 codes. What are the 20 that he does the least? Oh, these 10 he never did. He did once last year. Let's give him his full fee on that. So it looks like they've given you a really good fee increase and they gave you nothing. So make sure you're only doing the ones that you routinely perform every day, every week, multiple times. Ask for close to 90. And if they come back with something close, great. That's your negotiating position. Okay, I already said the 3 possible outcomes. Best case, they agree to your fees. Very few will ever do that. A couple did with me. It was like crazy. Several said we can't, and they gave some really good fees. And several told me, you're gone. I call that Independence Day. They accept your resignation. You begin your transition to a more profitable practice model. By the way, it is not at all unusual, and I've been doing this with my members for years. It's not at all unusual to see a little bit of a dip after you leave a couple of PPOs. Why? Because you're going to lose some patients. Now, how many patients depends on how you do the knee-to-knee, eye-to-eye, toe-to-toe conversation, your timing of it, the whole 9 yards, but you plan on losing some. And then after that dip, if you've done everything well and done it right, you'll see it come back, meaning your profit comes back higher. And the vast majority of the people who've done this right end up with more profit, same or less amount of work, and happier because they're not dealing phone with the just terrible, you're not totally out of insurance because you still have to submit for your patients, but I didn't mind that so much at that point. Another thing that we focused on in both of my practices, especially as you're starting to leave PPOs, but even if you're in PPOs, even if you're in a bunch of PPOs, you're still getting calls from people who are out of network. And yes, your team, I'm sure you've given them a script and it's probably pretty good. Do you take my insurance? But those calls are gold mines. Those calls are gold mines. So better scripting. We worked on this we have 4 coaches in Freedom Summit Coaching, and we worked with the 4 coaches on my script that I had done for my practices and then what they had done in some of their practices. And we just made it so that it's just really super straightforward. And part of it is scripting and part of it is attitude of the person on the phone, meaning your team member, how they approach the call and how they control the call. So this can be a huge, if you only added 1 or 2 more patients a week who currently were hanging up and saying, nah, I'll call a provider who's in network, 1 or 2, that's $150,000 annual revenue. It's just huge. So that should be way up on there. That person looks evil, doesn't he? Okay, timing is everything. Financially ready. Risk assessment. One of the things we do for our Wealth Accelerator members is a 25 KPI assessment. I call it a PPO drop readiness assessment. And you can do this for yourselves. Basically, you look at all the data of your practice, your financial situation, your age, your income, your cushion, how many patients, what percentages are in those PPOs. I take 25 different points, and basically there is no, oh yeah, there's no simple answer. Everyone is a custom situation, but for those of you, I know we have a lot of our members on tonight. I saw several, including Overall and Kevin, and I saw a bunch of people. So for those who, and Don, I see that you got, Don Rosso, I see that you got the link. Excellent. Good to have you with us. Many of you have seen me do the analyses because I do them sometimes during office hours when I do office hours group Zoom call. And it's not a gut decision you should be making. But before you even make an analysis, I would do revenue optimization and just get everything cooking. Classic mistakes. These are, unfortunately, they're frequent. And I see this so often. People just there'll be a lot to sit there and talk to every patient over a 6-month period. And we just mailed a letter. That's kiss of death. It's the absolute kiss of death. Now, you'll retain some patients, but you will retain way more if you sit there. We have one thing and one thing only that the insurance companies will never have that is to our huge advantage. And that is relationship and trust. And that relationship is built one person at a time, one patient at a time, and use that. So don't mail a letter. Mistake number 2, telling the insurance company you're leaving before the patients. And so it's one thing to send them a thing, we want higher fees, but it's another thing to say, to just pull out. In other words, if you're ready to leave and you're not going to stay and just pulling out, then you want to have the knee to knee, eye to eye, toe to toe. And that may be difficult it's funny because with Framingham, I didn't use this at all. I hadn't even thought of it. And I just pulled out. And with those, I took the 6 months. Even in Worcester, with some of them, I did the 6 months before I even tried the nuclear option, just because I wanted to make sure that people were aware and I didn't think they were going to pay me. And I was honest with the patients. I said, here, by the way, I'm not going to go through the whole speech right now. I've done this at other times, but the gist of the discussion with the patient is, you've been amazing and we love your family and love having you and have appreciated the opportunity to treat you guys. We really do and really have. And we're so grateful. Unfortunately, we've come to a really difficult decision at this point because ABC PPO, whatever their PPO is, ABC PPO, based on their fees, we're unable to continue to give you the uncompromised quality of care that you certainly deserve and you expect from us at their compromised fees. We're unable to continue to give you the quality of uncompromised care that you expect from us and that you certainly deserve at the compromised fees that they're paying. So that, again, that's a piece of the script. All right, I'm not going to, every time by the way, I have everything timed so I can get through this for you guys. And every time I veer off, I double it. So I apologize for that. Hopefully that was helpful though. So both of these mistakes will destroy retention rates. All right, patient retention protocol. Personal approach, we just talked about. Needing the eye to eye, toe to toe, proven scripts, we just talked about. Timeline 6 months at least. Typically at the end of the 6 months, you're not going to have everybody because not everybody came in on recall. You don't have to have, by the way, you only have to have one in a family. So if a family has an average of 2.5 patients in your practice, you really only need one of the people, usually the mother. So what we do at the end of the 6 months is we make a list of those who we never spoke with. And then you choose, again, the mother usually, and you split this up amongst doctors and hygienists, the hands-on providers, and you make calls. And you're only going to, unless this is half your practice. So let's say it's a couple hundred people, that's now boiled down to, let's say, 80 or 90 families. And if it's 80 or 90 families and you got 2 hygienists and 1 doctor making the calls, that's 20 or 25 calls. And the calls are super short. They're a minute or 2, couple minutes. And so you make 5 a day each, and in a week or 2, you're done. And so now you've either seen them toe to toe, knee to knee, eye to eye, or you've spoken with them on the phone. Yeah, smile well. Membership plans. This is another safety net you have to have. And this is just smart business today. It's just smart business. The final safety net before the nuclear option. Most of you probably already have them, some don't. don't, but most of you probably do. If you don't, I would urge you to get one, in-office membership plan. And they're useful in so many ways. They're really useful in you're leaving a PPO and Mrs. Jones is sitting there looking at you and she says, I love you guys and you did such a beautiful job with my veneers, but I know Henry's going to be really upset because financially we're a little, and she's on the fence. If Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones is on the fence and you can tell they're good patients and they'd love to stay, but it's just, this is a tough decision for them. You look to your right, you look to your left, you lean in and quietly say, as if you don't want any other patients to hear this, look, you guys have been amazing. We have an in-office plan that I'm going to give you as a gift. Normally it's, and then you tell them how much it would cost for a year. I'm going to give this to you as a gift because you guys have been amazing and you can have it for a year. It's going to help you save a bunch of money in addition to using your insurance, and we will maximize your insurance as well. Anyway, if you do that right, and again, it's all about the tone, it's all about the delivery. It's not just the scripting. It's the scripting too, but it's the scripting and the delivery and the tone. That's why all of these, all scripts need to be practiced by your team and by the doctors. Patients new patients on the phone. Do you take my insurance? So again, this is an ace up your sleeve. If they're about to hang up, oh, you know what I could do? Why don't you come in? I've got this afternoon at 2, I got tomorrow morning at 8. We've got a membership plan normally so again, you can use these in so many different ways. And these, unfortunately, 95% of the plans that I've reviewed for members, they were given away at the store. It's like writing another PPO. You're just losing money. Many of the Wealth Accelerator members, probably several of you who are on the call tonight, have already sent me your plans and we've worked on those. If you are a Wealth Accelerator member and you have not yet done that, send your plan to me by email and say, please review it. And I can help you with tweaks. I can also help you rewrite it. We'll do all the design work for the trifold brochure, the application. Basically, we'll get everything to camera ready other than you then take it to a local printer. Dollars wise, I put 20,000, but it's a really low estimate. The mistakes that we see in these could be multiples of that, which you're losing off of your membership plans that you don't need to. The patient would be just as happy. They don't know the difference. All right, next step. So we already talked about an in-depth 25 KPI assessment of basically your readiness to be able to drop one or more safely. Revenue optimization, we talked about a bunch of different things. There's many more, but we talked about a bunch. Build a 6-month survival capital financial cushion for yourself so that if your practice bottomed out to such a point that you could only cover your expenses and you got zero income for the doctor. So the owner is now at zero, making nothing, that you'd be okay for at least a minimum 6 months. So again, I know I said it's not a bluff a whole bunch of times, but that is the case. So far, we've covered the nuclear option letter that forces higher fees. We've covered why the executives are so desperate. And the coolest thing is it's more so now than it ever was. It just is. Critical revenue leaks you should be fixing before you do this. Fatal mistakes that can destroy patient retention as you leave a PPO, and the next steps. You're leaving about 300,000 on the table. And when I say about 300,000, it's probably way more. Depends on the size of your practice. So one doctor, one hygienist practice, we typically see about 200,000 to 300,000. That's pretty easy to recoup. No-show eliminations we talked about. That's about, for a one doctor, one hygienist, about 70,000 a year if you're not getting a ton of no-shows and cancellations. Silent fracture detection, about 80,000 or more. Caller conversion, about 150 if you get one or two more to say yes to coming in versus I'm just going to call a network guy. Patient retention, how to have patient retention conversations, and membership plan optimization where that 20K is probably pretty low. So you may say to yourself that all makes sense, but how do I actually make it happen? And it's a good question, because knowing what to do and actually getting in there and doing it or doing it well are two totally different things. Most dentists will go to a seminar, go to a webinar, go to a master class, and they have great intentions. We all do. And 90 days later, they're still in the exact same position they were when they were. And why is that? It's a series of different things. One is just not taking the steps and not necessarily feeling comfortable. What are the steps and how do you do it? So some of the roadblocks that I've seen, and these are things I've been told by doctors, I don't have a proven strategy that works. I don't have time. I don't have any time. We are so maxed out. I'm like a hamster on a hamster wheel. Coaching programs are too expensive. I'm afraid it won't work for my practice. So as far as the strategies, I could certainly help you with that. The time issue, if you implemented just one of the strategies that I'll share with you in a moment, just one out of the 10, you could see tens of thousands in revenue in just a few weeks. So there's not a whole lot of time you need to put into it. And the average training that I share is 13 minutes. The longest one I think is 17. The shortest one is 7 minutes. As far as being too expensive, I can help you with that as well, because what I offer, the Wealth Accelerator, is less than the cost of breakfast each day without any long-term commitment. And I'm not talking about the Ritz-Carlton. I'm talking about just an average breakfast at Denny's. And as far as it won't work in my practice, I've taken all the risk out of getting my help, and I'll get into that in just a second. So the best way that I can help you with that, you get the systems, you get results, rapid revenue increase, typically 50, could be 100,000. What are you going to get? I have no idea because I don't know what you're going to do, but it's not that difficult to do that if you deploy one or two of the strategies well. And then you get guidance from me. Take my hand. I'll walk you through the process step by step. I'm here for you for your questions. All of our Wealth Accelerator members, they shoot me questions by email. We also have live Zoom office hours. If you can't make office hours and you've got a complex question that really needs me to sit and talk like this, then I'll do that during office hours. And then within an hour or two, as soon as Zoom renders it, I'll send you a link to my private copy of it even before we put it on the website. That's been very effective for many of our members if they had to come and go or you couldn't make office hours, although do be on office hours if you can. So here's some exclusive bonuses for this evening, and these are for tonight only, and they end at midnight. I used to make it midnight Eastern time, but I've been told by the guys in California that's really not fair based on the fact that, okay, so this is midnight Pacific time. It's funny, I can't even say that. Midnight Pacific time. Here are the bonuses. First bonus is one free coaching call, one free 30-minute coaching call with one of my Freedom Summit coaches. They are amazing, and they will walk you through any of the 10 strategies. You just say, I'd love for you to actually walk me and my team through this. And so they'll do that. Special savings, $300 off of the everyday investment for the 90 days. So it's $100 up off of a month, $100 off per month times 3 months. As far as your nuclear demand letter, you might want to personalize it. You might have something you want to do slightly differently with it than the template. I'm happy to work on that with you during office hours, or you can shoot me an email and say, can you make some changes to this? Here's what I really need to do with mine because, and I'm happy to craft it. I've been doing copywriting for about 35 years now, and I've gotten really good at it. Guerrilla marketing formula. I will write and design your version of what I call the $8 per new patient windfall formula. Can't guarantee you'll get new patients at $8, but the lady, Regina, who was kind enough to share this with our members during one of our masterminds, she got them for $8 a patient. I'll get into more of that in a minute, but it was just nuts. And many of our members have duplicated that since. I love guerrilla marketing because it's basically you don't put out very much money at all. You could do this thing for $30-40 and get a bunch of patients out of it. And you can repeat it. It's like rinse and repeat. Membership plan design, as I said, I will help you write or rewrite. So if you haven't got one at all, because I saw one in the, it's Susan said, Shalakian said, Dr. Shalakian says, how do you start the in-office membership plan? I can do it from scratch with you, showing you what we would normally do, what the mistakes are, how to avoid them. We'll then write it for you, design it, and so forth. The only thing you would need to do is to print it. I'm going to take a quick sip of my liquid IV. That is me floating slightly. By the way, one of my favorite sayings from my wife, Elizabeth, the engineer, is willful suspension of disbelief. So before I show you what you're going to get with a 90-day Wealth Accelerator, I need to make something crystal clear. And I've already said this, but it's worth reiterating. You don't have to do all of the 10 modules. You don't have to do half of it. Frankly, if you deployed one of them and you did a nice job on it, you will be thrilled that you did it. And so I'm asking for a little willful suspension of disbelief as we walk through this. Because now if you want to do a bunch of them, you can, but a lot of offices just do one a month. So at the end of 3 months, they've done 3. You can do as much of it as you want, but do 1 or 2 in 90 days, 13-minute training, and then you deploy, boom. Okay, it is for general dental practices. I've been asked, will this work for specialists? The answer is probably not. I wouldn't do it. There's not enough in there for specialists. It's all about GPs. It's designed for rapid revenue growth. In just a few weeks, you'll see results if you're doing it. Works for PPO and fee-for-service practices. So whether you're knee-deep in PPOs and you're up to your eyeballs, like, oh, I'm in 18 PPOs and 95% of my patients are that's a fine. Or you're 100% fee for service. It's even more important because you want to continue to stay that way. And so everything that we teach, with the exception of how to drop, there's one module on how to drop and what you do step by step. That's the only you won't need because you've already done it. So the other 9 will apply. And then I'll help you determine through that PPO drop readiness assessment, which PPOs to drop first and when is a good time. And I'll go into step by step, what should you do between now and then to make yourself in a better position so you would be ready. Here's what you get with a 90-day Wealth Accelerator. Doesn't she look happy? It's like Christmas. Add 50 to 100,000 in just a few weeks through proven strategies, masterclasses, personalized support. PPO or 100% fee for service makes no difference. If you do want to drop 1 or more plans, terrific. If you don't, you'll still do really well with Wealth Accelerator. It's not all about dropping, but it is focused on those who would like to drop as well. So I can do that as well. Module number 1. So here are the modules. 13-minute. It actually shows you how long those are. Super fast. This one is no-show elimination protocol. If you follow the protocol, and it's really easy. If you follow the protocol, you'll cut missed appointments. Could be 40-50% or more. We actually had one doctor in New York. He was actually the office manager. His wife was the doctor. And the two of them, the couple in New York, they cut their no-shows by almost 90%. Now, I'm not suggesting that you will, but they did. And you could do it by 50% easily if you follow the protocol. And you can reclaim up to $70,000 lost revenue if you're a one doctor, one hygienist office, and more if you're bigger. And most of that's profit. About 85% of that is profit. Module 2 is the silent fracture detection system. That's That's me as Sherlock Holmes looking for fractures with a stethoscope and smoking a pipe. That's probably not a good idea. Anyway, it's 17 minutes, a little bit longer than the others, so it's 4 minutes longer than the average. Todd Matthews says try Waterboy instead of Liquid IV. I will try that. I'm all into trying stuff. Although I got to tell you, I love Liquid IV. My daughter played one volleyball at Cornell, and she said that the entire team before every tournament, they all had Liquid IV. That's how I was turned on it in the first place. All right, so silent fracture detection. Learn to spot asymptomatic deep dentin fractures. And we already talked about this. You'll add 1 or 2 more buildup in crowns per hygienist per week. And of course, she finds them, he finds them, you corroborate, and then you fix them up to about 80,000 or more additional revenue per Module 3 is the out-of-network caller conversion. Even if you're in a lot of PPOs, you are getting calls all week long from patients who do take X, and whatever X is, you're not in it. And unless you're recording and reviewing all your calls, you have no idea how many calls are getting just hung up because you're not in network. So this is a really easy place to improve, and it's really easy to do. This training is 10 minutes. So you buy your team some donuts or croissants or lunch or whatever you want, and minutes later they can then be practicing, and then that afternoon they can be using it. It's pretty cool. You might ask, where does he get the 50 to 100,000 annual extra money just for 1 or 2 with no extra marketing? But what I did is I took the average lifetime value of a general practice in the US, which is about 60. You take the $6,200 and it's over a 6-year period, which is the average stay of a general practice patient. You then, on the assumption that they're going to do a minimum of about % of that 6-year revenue, it turns into some huge bucks, and it just keeps compiling every year. Module number 4, safe PPO exit strategy. There is the safe exit right there. It's all lit up. And this is a 15-minute class. It's basically, how do you drop PPOs without losing everybody? How do you get the maximum retention? You're going to lose patients. How do you get maximum retention? And we go through the knee to knee, eye to eye. I give you examples of it. I give you the scripts, how I would say it, and so forth. And by the way, anything and everything that we do, we can also talk about on office hours. I can answer questions on email as well. Module 5, membership plan profit fixes. Again, 95% of in-office membership plans are just making at least 3 mistakes, and you can save tens and tens of thousands of dollars if you do some minor tweaks to the way it's written. These guys are out in the field looking for recall patients who are overdue. That's actually not how we do it, but overdue patient recovery system. So pretty much every practice is using either Lighthouse 360 or Demand Force or RevenueWell or Dentrix Ascendant. There's all these high-tech systems, and you should be. Those are all good systems. So the 4 that I mentioned, I'm sure there's others, but the 4 that I mentioned are all good systems. So don't get me wrong, you should be doing it. But there's always patients who just don't respond. And so what I did in my practices is I said, okay, from a guerrilla marketing standpoint, boots on the ground, what do you do when you've got patients who, they're good people, they're good, but they're just not responding to it. So, okay, so it's a 17-minute masterclass, again, a little bit longer than the average, but again, it's 17 minutes, pretty quick. And you will bring back, if you follow the protocol, you will bring back lost patients who've not been responding. I can even give you some stats out of my practices. Typically, in Framingham, we were bringing back about 7 or 8 recall patients who had not been responsive each week. And in Worcester, it was actually bigger because Worcester was a much bigger practice. But on a 1-doctor, actually Framingham was 2 when I sold it. But long story short, in a 1-doctor practice that's roughly busy 4 days a week or moderately busy, you could bring back 6 or 8, almost a full day of hygiene from people who just haven't been responding. Now, this would be a good question to ask, which is, how is 7 or 8 patients in hygiene $100,000 to $200,000? It's not. It's about 60 or 70,000 in hygiene fees. It's about another 100 to 150 in restorative fees from the extra recall exams. So the total potential between the hygienist and the doctor or doctors for about 7 or 8 more patients per week brought back into recall is 100 to 200,000 per year. It's simple math, and it works. And that's assuming nobody does any big cases. If you're doing some veneer cases or anything big, some cases, whatever, TMJ, sleep apnea, I've not included that. This is some simple bread and butter, assuming just, let's say, 1,000 or so. It's really conservative math there. All right, team bonus system, super important. If you have one and it's working, when I say working, you love it, you're happy with it, and your team also loves it. So for a team bonus system to work, everybody has to love it. Everybody has to agree that it's working for them. One of the things about team bonus systems that's really important, a lot of people have had team bonus systems and they work for a while, which is cool. But with most team bonus systems, what we find is eventually they become an entitlement because the revenue goes flat or goes down or whatever, and yet you're still paying them bonus money. So the way many of them are written, it's not good. So the way that we write ours, and we help you write, basically we'll write yours for you or show you how to write it, depending on a couple things there, but it can never become an expectation the way we've written it. We had 35 team members when I sold the 2 practices, and they were super happy with that system. You can see they're high-fiving over the cash I'm handing out. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Okay, see if this will continue going there. There it is. 3 more rapid revenue modules, and we'll just go quickly through these. You got adult fluoride, about $40,000 per hygienist. dentist in additional revenue. That's based on many of our members achieving 80% acceptance of adults paying out of pocket for fluoride. Real simple and straightforward. If you are biologic or holistic, then I respect that 100%. You just skip that one module. Again, you don't have to do all these modules. But if you're not biologic or holistic, this is an easy bump, and it's almost pure profit. So you're at about 95% profit on this. The other 5% would be a little bit of supply cost, very little, and also a little bit of team bonus because you want to share it with the team. Perio acceptance blueprint, about 100,000 extra if you can add just 2 more perio phase 1 patients saying yes per week. Let's say you're already doing a good job of probing everybody and explaining to everybody. I have yet to meet an office where the doctor didn't say to me, yeah, we might be able to get 1 or 2 more able to do that. Ken just asked, can I email the link for the letter? Let me address that definitely. And since you're a member, yes, but I'll address that for everybody because I want to make sure everybody gets it complimentary, everybody who's on this tonight. Low cost guerrilla marketing, I already mentioned. Dr. Regina Gamuccio was super nice in sharing a strategy that she came up with where she ended up getting tons of patients. And many of them bought her, right off the bat, they bought her in-office membership plan. Many of them did whitening, a couple of them did implants. This is all within the first 16 days. She made just a fortune on this thing. And as I said, many of our members have copied it. One of the bonuses, I don't know if I went through the bonuses yet or not, but one of the bonuses we're doing tonight is I will write this ad for you and customize it and do the design and give you the artwork. So you have to do pretty much almost nothing. I'll make this super easy for you. You will have to pay for it. Not me, but you'll have to. We'll get into the 3 levels of personal support beyond the master classes. One is the PPO drop readiness assessment. Again, I look at 25 points of data, determine your practice's readiness for the nuclear option. And if it's not safe yet, I'll tell you that, but I'll tell you which things I would do first to get into that position so that you can do that. Personal email support. You email me any questions you have. I respond typically within 1 or 2 days. And that's not business days. I read email 7 days a week, and I usually respond same day. But if I'm really traveling or whatever, out playing volleyball in some other part of the country, which I do occasionally, then it'll be maybe a day or 2, but you'll get quick response. If it's something complex, as I said earlier, and I can't respond with, oh, here's a link or here's a quick answer, then we'll discuss it during office hours. If you can't be there, then I will send you a link to office hours so you'll hear me walking through every step of what I would recommend in a video link that you'll get within a couple hours right after, as soon as Zoom renders it. Yeah. So just a quick recap. This is your complete wealth building arsenal at a glance. Module 1, no-show elimination. Module 2 is silent fracture detection. 3 is out-of-network caller conversion, safe PPO exit strategy, membership plan profit fixes, adult fluoride, recall retention, perio phase 1, team bonus system, and the $80 ad that generated $6,000 and 11 new patients in 16 days, 10-minute masterclass. You'll also get the PPO drop readiness assessment, weekly office hours, and tonight's exclusive bonuses. I just don't ever at any time. I really have no time. I'm like on a hamster wheel and I can't get off. If that's the case, then you really do need this. The average gem, again, 13 minutes. Master 1 or 2 of them within 90 days, which will minimal time. You're on social media more than that in 1 day than you would need in 1 month doing this thing. You could potentially add 50, 60, 80, 100,000 or more pretty easily. I just bought a cone beam. I just added a new operatory. I just added this huge monthly expense now. Cash is really tight. That's exactly why you need it, because the Wealth Accelerator, and this is just a fact, if you do 1 or 2 things in the Wealth Accelerator, it could rapidly help you pay for your cone beam and then some. Your investment is less, as I said, less than the cost of a breakfast, probably less than your coffee. Depends on what kind of coffee you like. The voice in your head saying, it's amazing, but I'm not sure if it would work for me in my situation. I'm super confident it will, as long as you use it. And I'm going to take all the risk. You take 0 risk. There's a 60-day full money back, no questions asked guarantee. There's no weasel clause. There's nothing there, no loopholes. You don't have to prove to me you even tried it, although I hope you will, but because I want you to get the results. I really do. At 68 years old and able to retire when I was 46, literally, Elizabeth and I could have walked away when we sold our businesses. We had 3 businesses and we just love doing this. And so we want to see you guys get the results. My practice is different because we're in rural. No, we're in suburban. We're in urban. No, you don't understand. We're in the north, south. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter who your demographic is. It'll work equally well no matter where you live or who you're serving. It just does, because we've done this with thousands of dentists over the years. Geography doesn't change human psychology. Patients, it's in their DNA. Patients everywhere want the best care. They want the best value. They want to be treated well, and your practice needs optimized systems. I'm pretty close to retirement, Tom. I'm actually going to get out in a year or so, and I don't want to really make any big changes right now. Are you too close to retirement to add $50,000 or $100,000 to your retirement fund in the next year or two? Or they're not big changes. These are small tweaks. They're really small tweaks that produce really big results. It's kind of like the small hinges that move big doors. Whether you're young or mid-practice, just starting out, wiser in years, I don't say older, but wiser in years, even if you're way older than I am, which there probably aren't that many that are way older than I am, but even if you're my age, you want maximum return with minimal effort, and that's what you get with us. And if you are getting out in the next couple of years, you can make a whole lot more money, not just during your last few years, but more increase the sale value when you're ready to get out. I'll think about it, and maybe next year. Next year, you'll be exactly where you are today. today, except 365 days older, more frustrated, making less money, continued PPO cuts, which I can't believe they keep doing that, by the way, that how many letters they're sending out saying, yeah, we're not increasing, we're actually decreasing your fees. The best, you've heard this before, there's a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. It's right now. It's today. Karen Lamb wrote one of my favorite quotes ever. Super simple. A year from now, you'll wish you had started today. And it's just true. So many things I look back on in my own life. It's just true. A year from now, you say, I wish I'd started this a year ago. You have a 10x or walk away satisfaction guarantee. Take 60 full days risk-free to test drive your wealth accelerator. If I don't make the learning fun and boosting revenue pretty easy, ridiculously easy, if you don't think that what you discover is worth 10 times what you paid for any reason, doesn't matter what it is, any reason you're not thrilled, I don't want to keep your money. Send me a quick email anytime during the first 60 days and say, I want a refund and I want out. No forms, no hoops, nothing to sign, no questions asked. Either we add serious money to your practice in 60 days or you get your investment back. And that's the guarantee. So it's the simplest, 100% satisfaction anytime in the first 60 days. That's the easy button, by the way, right there. Click the link. I actually haven't given you a link, so you can't click the link, but I can give you a link. So let me give you the link. The reason I'm saying click the link now, even though I'm not done explaining it, is that when the webinar ends, you won't have the link anymore. And so I want you to be able to at least have that link. So it's in the chat now. So if you click on that link, you'll have that up. And if you have heard enough and you would like to join us, I would love to have you with us and have the opportunity to help you. Or you could just click it and leave that up for a moment and stay with us. So I'll keep going either way. And I'm also, as I say, going to stay and answer questions as long as my voice holds up. Nobody's asked me tonight. Usually I get a question, which liquid IV is that? Tonight I'm drinking pina colada. However, one of my new favorites in liquid IV is, because pina colada was my all-time favorite, it's like the dreamsicles. I don't know if you guys remember when we were kids. We were probably all kids at different times. But anyway, the dreamsicle was like a creamsicle. It was an orange and vanilla inside kind of woven through, and those things were delicious. So they have one that tastes like that. All right, so you have the link now. Your investment for the 90 days, see this guy sipping mint juleps on the beach. Your investment is normally $5.97 a month. So if you were to go to our website tomorrow, it is what we charge. It's $5.97 a month for 3 months, which is still super fair for what you're getting. Tonight you save $300 before midnight Pacific time. So you're basically paying $4.97 a month for 3 months. Bottom line is you'll have everything you need to get a significant, potentially a six-figure, but 50, 60, 80, 100 or more. Many of our guys have seen this in just a few weeks. You could certainly see it within the next month or two. You'll get my personal in-depth assessment when you're ready if you'd like to learn more about dropping PPOs specific to your practice. Treatment acceptance, you'll get more yeses to optimal care, even in the absence of symptoms. I got to stop for a second on this as far as optimal care. Pete Dawson was just amazing to me, and I spent a couple of years with him, went through all his courses, didactic, all the over-the-shoulder stuff, and he ended up writing the foreword to one of my books. And he wrote me a letter about why he was writing the foreword. I have that letter in my office in the back. And Dolly, no, I'm going to go look. I did not grab the link to the letter, so I'm gonna find that in a moment. I know where it is. I'm sure it's on Google Drive, so I should be able to get it fairly easily, like in a minute. So Pete Dawson, when he wrote the foreword to one of my books, he sent me a letter and he said, Tom, I've turned down almost every request to write a foreword, and the reason that I'm writing yours is I have faith that you will carry on my mission of helping dentists understand the need and opportunity for complete dentistry. And I was blown away because, as he said, he's asked all the time, or he was asked, he's passed away now, but he was kind enough to do that. But it was about really doing our best dentistry. And under PPO pressures, it's really difficult to do that. All right, exclusive bonuses. One free coaching call, $100 off the everyday investment. That's $100 off per month times 3 months. Personalized PPO higher fee demand letter. I'll help you personalize it. Marketing formula. I will write and design that version of that ad for you. And the membership plan design if you would like, or review yours, or tweak yours, or write it from scratch. Join before midnight Pacific time. By the way, for those of you on the East Coast, I understand that's 3 a.m. You save $100 per month. You pay only $4.97 times 3. You get the free bonuses. All right. And you can see the sand is running out of the hourglass on the left. Yeah, no, the letter to the link. Good. I can't speak. The link to the letter I have not put in there because I haven't got it because my wife calls this loose nut at the keyboard. I've been working really hard for the last 2 weeks only on this webinar. And I think I got everything the way I wanted it. The only thing I forgot was the link to the letter. So I will get, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember Art Link letter. Anyway, start your risk-free 60-day test drive today. Click on the link in the chat. 60-day risk-free test drive, $300 savings, expires at midnight. Okay, so let me do this. Even before I do Q&A, because I'm sure there's questions been written there and I really haven't been able to look at the chat and all the screens at the same time. I do need to find, there's a browser. Okay, so I'm going to look for, let's say, may have it. So we'll try that and that. Okay, now we're We're under insurance. I got it. Hey, I told you it might take me 2 minutes. It took me 2 seconds. I love Google. Google can find anything for you so fast. All right. Insurance fee increase demand letter to PPOs. PD. Let me just look at it. Yeah, that is the correct one. I need to share. I can't believe how fast Google finds stuff. That's so super cool. I need to make it available for anyone with the link because it was restricted. So now it's available to anyone. And look at that. Probably 60 seconds total. That's the letter. So the link that I just put in there, let me just test it and see that it actually works. Yes. Okay. So the link that I just put in there is the letter. What you write in the letter is probably the least important part of the whole thing. I already kind of walked you through the letter, which is, hey, I've appreciated our mutual pay treat. Unfortunately, at this point, I can't afford to deliver the level of care that they deserve and that we would all want based on the fees. I've attached Schedule A. Please see the Schedule A. And of course, you put 90 to 95% of your fees. You only choose the 25 to 30 that are the most common ones that you most frequently do so that they don't screw around with you, because otherwise they will. And basically at the end of it, it says, if you're able to, terrific, we'll stay on. If not, and of course, every insurance company has a different notice period. Some of them are 30, some are 60, some are 90. I don't think there's anything beyond that, but you got to look at the contract or ask provider relations. And then it would say at the bottom, or this is, if you are unable to give us an increase to the Schedule A, please consider this our 60-day notice, and you sign it, and then you send it FedEx return receipt requested. Sorry, you could say SPS return receipt requested, or I like FedEx because I just think it's better. FedEx, it's a little more expensive, but it gets the point across better. FedEx signature required. All right, I got you the letter. Isn't that funny? Art link letter. So that I'm going to put in the chat again. The special offer for tonight is ppoexit.com/WB 46SO. So that's there. You can click on that. Let me go backwards in the chat and see if there were questions already written in, because again, I've only glanced occasionally at the chat here. Okay, so I'm going to go backwards a bit. Okay, will this work if you're out of network and they have reached out a couple times to come back? From Dr. Jordan Wick. They've reached out a couple times to come back. The answer is yes, if you are in a financial position. It's no different than if you were still in and you were leaving potentially. So let's say they've reached out a couple of times. You were great. We've got a lot of your patients who'd love to come back to you, blah, 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 blah. We'll give you a little bit better fee. Great. So you send them the letter and you say, you'd have to modify it. And again, if you join us in the Wealth Accelerator, I'll write it for you. I would modify it. And I would say something to the effect of, I know you've reached out a couple of times. At this point, we're actually in a better position to be able to serve our patients at the highest level without the added, I wouldn't say exactly what I'm thinking, but you know what I'm thinking, but I wouldn't say any of that. So I would say it in a very courteous and respectful manner. And then I would say, please see attached Schedule A. If you are able to meet those fees, then I'd be happy to come back. And if not, then I appreciate your having tried. So again, all very cordial. I would send that FedEx signature required, but you're only going to do that. It's not a bluff. You're only going to do that if you're in a position where you don't need them. Now, let's say you're on the fence. And so Jordan says, let's say, yeah, I do have a lot of open shares that I didn't have. I was making, I'm just going to pick a blind number. I was making $300,000 a year net. You might be making way more than that, way less. Doesn't make any difference. Let's say 300,000 net, but I noticed after I dropped that company that I've leveled off around 240, 230. So I've lost a significant amount of my income, a big chunk, or maybe went down further. So if you're okay with that, and let me rephrase that, you're not okay with that. If you want to fix that without kowtowing to the insurance, which is what I would do, because the worst thing that you can do is go back to an insurance company that's now got you by the neck, because that's what they do. They reach out to everybody who's left. They're not singling you out. They're desperate to get everybody back. So they reach out to everybody. How desperate depends on how many they've lost and how many, not memberships, but how many subscribers they have sold based on the number of employers and the number of employees. So before I would ever consider doing that, I would go, in fact, here it is on the screen right here. If you only worked on the no-show elimination protocol and you bumped even 40 or 50,000, you've already taken back a big chunk of what you've lost from that one PPO. This one is one of the favorites of our members just because usually it's $80,000 to $100,000 for one doctor at one hygienist office. So again, I would pick one or two of these and work on these for the next month or two, and it's not going to take you more than a few weeks. But anyway, I would do those. I would get myself in a great position where I can send them a letter back saying, hey, if you can meet these fees and you give them like 90% of your full fees, I'm happy to be back. Now, some doctors have asked me, is it better, and this is obviously an opinion, but in my opinion, they say, Tom, in your opinion, is it better to be totally out of network? And the answer is, it depends. In Worcester, I did not go 100% fee for service. I could have easily. First of all, as I said, Elizabeth and I were financially able to retire at 46. We would never do that. I'm still not retired. I'm working 7 days a week. I love what I do. But as far as the practices go, why did I not go 100% fee for service in Worcester? Because I dropped 13 of the 15 plans, and the last two plans that I kept, when I sold those two practices, practices. One was 100%, one was about 90%. Those two plans paid almost our full fee. So if there are plans that are willing to pay you 90% of your full fee or more, which do you think is better for your patients and for retention and for just, it's better. Again, this is opinion, but my opinion for Worcester was if they treated my staff well, if they didn't deny things just by algorithms that had nothing to do with anything, all of that stuff is just bullying. And many of the insurance companies do nothing but bully us. But these two companies were really good to my team. They were easy to talk to. Provider relations was good. Their fees were good. And so I said to Elizabeth, I don't need to be out of those last 2 out of 15. We dropped 13. We're keeping those 2. And when we sold, we kept them. We didn't keep them. We sold it with them. All right. So hopefully that answered your question. Austin Gunnarsson says, also dealing with 50% cut. Yeah. I don't know if you're in California or not, or Texas, but some parts of Texas and a lot of parts of California, it's like 40, 45, 50%. It's just ludicrous. If you think about the cost of operating a dental practice today, even before COVID, let's go a few years before COVID, there was already a hygiene shortage, but then COVID made employee shortage, hygiene shortage. Many of our members have reported 2 and 3 times, 200%, 300% increase in certain supply costs. It's not like the supply chain wasn't restored, but a lot of the companies just kept the fees. So that 50% is outrageous, and I hope I'll have the opportunity to help you fix that. So Shazad Sheikh says, will the nuclear option work with umbrella organizations like Connection and so forth? Really good question. I don't believe that you can target an individual. How can I say this? Let's say an umbrella has 8 different PPOs. Actually, let me go backwards a little bit because there are going to be some doctors who are saying, what's an umbrella? So most know, but some don't. So it goes by 3 different names. They can be called umbrella networks. They can be called shared networks. They can be called leased, LEASED, leased networks. Those 3 networks are basically a behind-the-scenes agreement, legal agreement behind the scenes of a sort of a partnering between insurance companies. So let's say, and I'm making this up, but let's say Aetna and Prudential and Delta, and it wouldn't be Delta, but a bunch of different companies have all gotten together and agreed, hey, let's make an umbrella where we're all together. It just gives them the opportunity to do to us, and again, I'm just trying to keep the language clean because it's a family night. It gives them the opportunity to do to us things that are bad even more than if we weren't in an umbrella. Now, how does an umbrella work? You've all seen this happen. So even those of you who weren't familiar with umbrellas will know exactly what I'm saying as soon as you hear this. Mrs. Jones is a new patient. She comes in. Oh, what insurance do you have? Oh, I have Acme 123 PPO. Okay. So she has Acme 123 PPO and you don't take it. You're not in network with Acme. And so you are assuming your full fee and that she's going to be paying full fee. And so Mrs. Jones does 2 crowns, a couple of fillings, perio, phase 1. And let's say it's a small case, not a big case. Let's say it's $5,000, $6,000, little, not a huge case. And you expect you're getting your full fees. Let's say it's $7,000, whatever it is. You expect you're going to get $7,000. Now, insurance is going to max out at $1,000 in most, some are $1,500 or more, but in most cases it's $1,000. Let's say let's say she gets $700 or $800 from her insurance, and you're assuming she's going to pay the other $6,200. The EOB comes back and says you need to write off 32% of that $7,000. Of the full fee. So now you're losing $2,152. Why? You're not in network. It's because Acme 123 PPO, the plan that she has, is in an umbrella with one of the plans that you have. And because you're in that umbrella, any patient who comes in on any of those 6, 8, however many there are in the umbrella, you are required by law, by contract, to reduce your fees. But that's not the worst news. The worst news is, let's say Mrs. Jones is in the best plan in the umbrella and it pays about let's say 85% of your fees. So there's a very small cut, maybe 15% cut, not that small, but let's say that she's in the best plan. Acme 123 is a really good plan. You happen to be in the 4th or 5th worst one. So you're in one that you're losing 30, 40%. If you're in the worst one, you're in deep stuff and here's why. You will not get allowed the fees that Mrs. Jones comes in with from her Acme, that would make sense. Why wouldn't we use the fee schedule that she came in with? Your fee schedule in the umbrella is the one that counts. And so you not only lose money because you have to do write-offs for somebody who you're not in network with, but you have to take them down to the level of whatever you contracted with that PPO that you're in network with. So write this down. If you are in any umbrellas, you only want to be in one plan within each umbrella. You never want to be in more than one plan within an umbrella, and you only want to participate, you only want to be in network with the highest paying plan within the umbrella. So there are companies, and if somebody wants to, you can email me outside of this, but there are companies, Ben is the guy who does it for our members. There are companies who will, Veritas, Ben Tuna, he's amazing. There are companies who, and there are many of them, what they'll do is they'll do an analysis of your geographic area, of all the umbrellas, of all the plans there, and see, oh my goodness, you're in 2 umbrellas, and you're in you're in two plans in one of the umbrellas. Neither of them is the best plan. And so they'll do what's called a restructuring of the umbrella with and for you. And it's a quagmire and it takes a long time. It's not, oh, this is done in a month or two. So if you're thinking of leaving the plans that you're in an umbrella, then it's not worth restructuring because it'll take more time than it would take you to get out. But if you're going to be staying in PPOs, then you want to be darn sure that you're in the best plan within the umbrella. So the answer is, would it work? Again, I'm not an umbrella expert. This would be things like that. That'd be something I would refer to Ben on. But my guess is that you would have to make sure that you're not in more than one plan. Because let's say you're in two plans accidentally, and a lot of doctors are. They're in two or more plans within an umbrella because they just didn't know. And who would know? Who would know this baloney? So let's say you're in more than one plan and you send the nuclear letter to one of the plans and they say, we're not playing, goodbye, whatever. So you're out. You're still in the umbrella. It doesn't change anything. So again, you want to make sure that you are absolutely certain you're only in one plan. All right. Owen says, does this work with TPA? Now, my oldest brother, when he was working, he's since retired since he's much older than I am, but he worked for a pharmaceutical company. He was a lawyer, and TPA is transplasminogen. I can't even say the word minogen activator, but I know that's not the TPA. That's if you go into the hospital and you are having a stroke and they give you TPA within, I think it's an hour window. That having been said, I have no idea within the insurance industry if it would work or not. I just don't know. So I don't want to guess on something I don't know. So I wish I could tell you I don't know. Let's see what else we have here. Mark Shepard says, jealous. Y'all have a periodontist. Haven't met him yet. We had a great one. He retired. Replacement became disabled. DS couldn't cover the area. Okay. Vitaly Shvets says, we had cases where the PPO denied even receiving signature required. What do we do then? Attorney. You know how on all the police shows, they say lawyer? I love that on the police shows. Lawyer. As soon as a PPO starts lying to you and you've got proof that they have it, I just have my attorney send them a demand letter. And by the way, you would give your attorney a copy of the letter that you sent and the proof that it was signed for. And oh, by the way, you want to really have some impact? I would send that letter not only to the PPO provider relations. I would, you know how you can do C at the bottom so that they can see everybody you've sent it to? I would do CC to the CEO. So it's sent to provider relations, but it's CC to the CEO of the corporation and it's CC to the insurance commission, the state insurance commissioner. So when you send something to provider relations, which has been copied both to their CEO and to their insurance commissioner, they are more likely to listen, not necessarily going to listen, but more likely to listen. Of course, with the insurance quagmire, and this is a trap that most dentists fall into because we just don't know. Only 50% of PPOs need to respond to the insurance commissioner. The other 50% are not bound by the rules and regulations of your state's legislature or the insurance commissioner. So what does that mean? All right. So for example, how can I describe this? Many people bring up that, oh, I'm in a state that has a Non-Covered Services Act. And the Non-Covered Services Act basically says it's legislation that, and I forget how many states, I think it's up to about 45 states. It's almost everywhere now. I can't believe that there's 5 or 8 states that still haven't done the legislation. But it basically says, hey, if you don't cover a service, let's say it's Invisalign or veneers, or just as a non-covered service, you can't tell me what I can charge for that. You didn't deny it. You don't even cover it. It's a non-covered service. But all of the PPOs, until the state started this legislation, all of the PPOs were forcing dentists legally by contract to pay reduced fees so that they were getting a nice cut for the patient and they were looking good and the patient was happy and we were losing money on stuff we shouldn't have lost money on because it wasn't covered. So about 5 or so of the states, almost all of them, have enacted this Non-Covered Services Act. The problem is you need to know if it goes one PPO at a time. It's not by state. So it's let's say you're in a state with a Non-Covered Services Act. One PPO at a time, you need to look at the contracts and or call provider relations and find out, is this something that is your PPO funded or indemnified by the insurance company? So what that would mean is, let's say Aetna is the PPO and it's for some company that's local in your area that bought Aetna insurance. Is Aetna actually paying the bill? Are they basically bound to pay? Are they responsible for the payments? Or is the PPO is the insurance company just a pass through and they're doing the administration of the plan and it's actually funded by the employer? Now, as you can imagine, only really big employers can afford to do that. So you've got governmental agencies, you've got big multinationals, you've got all these huge corporations that have billions of dollars. And so they don't want to pay an insurance company. They basically have their actuaries figure out the risk and they make profits off of it just the way an insurance company. Anyway, what happens is if it is not indemnified or paid for by the insurance company, if the employer, the larger employers are funding it and using the PPO only as an administrator, then they're not bound by the state insurance regulations, state insurance commissioner. They don't have to answer to them at all. I believe they're bound by federal ERISA laws. And so the scary thing is, if you haven't called, and I'd write this down and have your office manager, or maybe you do it, whoever, but I'd have somebody call each of the PPOs and find out, is this indemnified by Aetna, whoever the PPO is, or is this funded by the employer and not bound by the state insurance commissioner? Because if it is one of the 50% that's in the funded by the large employers, then they're not bound by your state's Non-Covered Services Act, which means they could require you by contract, and they probably do, to reduce your fees even for non-covered services. So a lot of dentists, unfortunately, have made the mistake of not knowing that. It's not a mistake. They didn't know it. They were unaware. And so they had their staff billing full fee to patients for anything that was non-covered service. So you gotta be really careful. And anyway, I just hate PPOs. Let me see if there's anything I missed here. We had cases denied. Can I have access connected late? Wade, if you send me an email, I would be happy to do that for you. Insurance companies, this is from Samir. By the way, Samir, welcome to PPO Exit, the Facebook group. I saw that you just joined earlier today. It's funny how everything I have is called PPO Exit. The Facebook group, the webinars, there's a book I'm writing called PPO Exit, my channel, everything is PPO Exit. Okay, so Samir says, insurance companies don't even reply to letters or phone calls, hard to get a hold of them. Yeah. Tally says, is it possible to request DDS patient ratio from the state insurance commissioner? Don't know the answer to that. You can certainly try. I don't know the answer to whether they would give it to you or not. Maybe they would. What about adding in fees for things that we don't do, such as amalgams to protect us against down coding? Jim Price once recommended that when I heard him speak. I'm sorry, Jim Pride. He was a good guy. I don't know the answer to that. Ben would know more than I would. Again, I am not by any means an insurance expert. I just have learned a lot over the years working with my members and working with insurance experts. We've actually had Ben speak to our members twice on webinars and twice live at some of our member in-person retreats. Victoria Colombo, can we tell patients that their insurance company has not increased their fees for 20 years? Yeah, as long as you don't sound like you're crying about it, but yeah. So I would say it slightly differently. Here's what I would say. So you bring up a good point, Victoria. You bring up a really good point. So the patient looks at us and says, Doc, how is it that this $8,000 treatment. By the way, I had a conversation with my wife about exactly what you just asked. How is it that this $8,000 treatment that I'm going to max out at $1,000 and I have to spend $7,000 out of pocket? What kind of, your fees too high or what is it? They're blaming it on us. So there's a lot of different things that go into this conversation, any of which or all of which you could share. First of all, as you just said, and by the way, it's a lot longer than 20 years. I graduated in 1980. The average maximum for insurance, PPOs, whatever, the average maximum for insurance annually was $1,000. Today, most of them are $1,000. Occasionally you find one that's $1,500. Once in a while, you find something better. So if they ask, why is my insurance not paying $2,000, $3,000 of this at least, almost half of my case, whatever. So there's a few things that they should know about this. First of all, as Dr. Colombo pointed out quite well, Mrs. Jones, unfortunately, the insurance industry by choice has not chosen to raise annual much, if at all, in 20 to 30 years. You take something that cost $1,000 20 years ago, it's about $2,000 now. It's about double in 20 years. And you can look it up exactly, but it's about double. So let's say their case is $7,000 today, it would have been $3,000 to $3,500 20 years ago. Now, that same 1,000 today is 1,000 of 7,000. Yesteryear, 20 years ago, it would have been 1,000 of 3,000 or 3,500. It would have been maybe it would have covered close to a third. Another thing that they should be aware of. So that's how I would put that. Another thing that they should be aware of is that there are better plans, and there are plans that pay a lot more than their plan. There's not many of them because they cost the employers a lot more money. So back in the late 1980s, this is not long after I started practicing, I was a few years into practice, there was a plan back in the late 1980s where this one young man, he had this plan that covered $2,500 maximum, which today, back in the 1980s, would probably be a $7,000 or $8,000 maximum in today's value. It's just insane. So what employer was able to buy insurance that was that expensive that would cover $7,000 or $8,000 maximum for each of their employees? If anybody gets it, type it into the chat. If anybody gets it, I'm going to send you a GEMS t-shirt, and I'll say the first person who gets it. So the first person who gets it. People are putting UPS. No, it wasn't Boeing. No, Actors Guild. Actors Guild is a good guess, but no. First person to guess this, I'll give you another minute or so. I'm going to take a quick drink. And then at the end of my drink, if I don't see anybody writing it in, I'll tell you what it was. But I have some really cool GEMS t-shirts. We have some Congress. Yeah, Congress is probably more than that. Epic Games. You're on the right track there, Joyce. Yeah, so far nobody's got it. All right, so you guys can stop typing because I'm happy to send out a t-shirt, but I don't want to, no, nobody's got it. Okay, so this young man, his name was Wes Gardner, and he was a relief pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. And the funny thing was, handsome young kid. He was like 6'4", 6'3". I'm guessing this was a long time ago. He was tall, and he was only with him a year or two, unfortunately, and then he got traded. But when he was in Boston, I was his dentist. Anytime he was in the office, even if I hadn't seen him come in, I knew he was there because all of my staff was gone. I'd be no assistants, the hygiene team was, there was nobody there. Where's the team? They're all out in the waiting room talking to Wes. Anyway, so they had there's another thing that you might use when patients ask you, why is this covering so little? So the one Victoria brought up was they haven't increased what they pay in 20, 30 years. That's number one. They have not kept up, purposely not kept up. And number two, some plans, not many, but some plans pay a lot more, but those plans are the choice of the employer. Your employer has a choice to buy those, and they're just much more expensive, and they may be unable to afford. You don't want to say your employer is bad, but they may be unable to afford that for all of their employees. We can understand that. The third thing you might use, because you can use all of these, is something that Paul Goodman uses, and he calls insurance similar to a coupon. It's really not insurance. It's more like a coupon. It pays a little piece of your dental care, and you pay really the majority of it. Of course, my insurance ninja, write that down, my insurance ninja, Nancy at the front desk, is going to do everything she can to maximize the benefit of your coupon. So he basically minimized, and I love that. It's a coupon, and it'll pay a little bit, but our insurance ninja, Nancy at the front desk, will do everything she can to maximize your benefit. All right, let me go backwards here because people wrote in so many things. I got to go back to the questions. Oh, we are past 10 o'clock. I'm going to answer a couple more questions, and then I'm going to bid you guys a good night. Let's see. Wow, people wrote a lot more questions. Where do we find the address for the insurance companies to mail the letters? I would use Perplexity. I use about 3 to 5 different platforms or more of all sorts of different AI every day, and Perplexity seems to be, or is, one of my favorites for that kind of research. So Perplexity, there's a free version of it you can use. Is there a key person or department to send the letter? It would be to provider relations with a copy to CEO and copy to insurance commissioner. Has anyone tried Delta or Blue Cross? I don't have personal knowledge of that, so I can't say they have or haven't. As I said earlier, Delta and Blue Cross are really the 800-pound gorillas, Delta especially. It would surprise me if they would negotiate, but if you're ready to leave Delta and you're just ready to walk away and you're all set, you're financially in good shape to do that, you've got a new patient flow, you've gone through the assessment by yourself or with me, either way, then yeah, I would just send it to them anyway, but I wouldn't expect anything. All dentists in my county have dropped certain insurance to the point that I am the only doctor left. Can I use this letter? 100%, John, that's awesome. Now, whether or not the insurance company cares, I don't know, but if it's an insurance company in a state where they have the regulations for adequacy law for insurance and PPOs, then they will care. If you're in a state that doesn't have those regulations, then they may not care. Although they're still going to care because the employers are going to get really mad. And if one big employer in your neighborhood or county drops out, they're going to lose a fortune. So they need you, and they should be paying you close to your full fee. John, excellent question. I love that. Renee says, from past experience, Delta, not usually. Terry, Ben put me in one umbrella with all of my plans. I don't understand your question, Terry. If you want to rewrite it, I'm not sure what you mean. Dolly says, are you referring to if you're in Aetna, then you're in Aetna network under umbrella like connection, only be in one plan for Aetna? Yeah, you could be in just one plan, and you are now legally responsible for reducing your fees in 4, 5, 6, sometimes 8 or more, depending on how many there are in the leased or shared network or umbrella. So yeah, how do I find out which umbrellas I'm contracted with? I would have somebody like Ben. Let me see if I can find, somebody asked if I've got Ben's information. Before we close out, which will be in a minute or two, let me see if I can find his info real quick for y'all. Ben, B-E-N. Okay, I got it. So I'm going to drop it in the chat. Here's his email. His name is Ben Tuane. Super nice guy. His company is great. I'll put, what do? They do fee negotiation. They do credentialing. They do umbrella analysis. I can't spell analysis. Wow. And restructuring. They'll help you restructure. That is a quagmire, and they do it well. All right. So there's 3 things that company does, that Ben does. Are we required to send letters to every state's Delta? I don't believe so, but again, that's something I would refer to Ben. You could certainly ask him that question, shoot him an email. You've got his email now. Terry says, how do you feel about virtual front desk companies? If I were practicing today, if I still had my practices or any practices, I would absolutely have virtual front desk. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't have somebody physically there, but think about the number of times a new patient's walking in, an existing patient's coming out with a $10,000, $20,000 case to do and needs to be talked to a little bit, and then the phone rings, and that poor person or people, maybe there's 2 people at the desk, and now they got to make a choice on who they're going to ignore. Ignore the new patient, and they may never come back. Ignore the patient walking out with a $10,000 or $20,000 case, and they probably will just leave. Ignore the phone call, and it might be a new patient you'll never see or hear from again. So 100% I would have one of those companies doing that. I did a 90-minute presentation on AI in dentistry. I researched 95 companies. I spoke in depth about maybe a dozen or so of them. whole wide range of stuff from clinical to non-clinical stuff. And yeah, I would have that in a heartbeat. Oh, with a cat. Any AI that integrates with anything at your practice management system, basically they have access to HIPAA information. They have to be HIPAA compliant. We just had a lecture for it was Anthony Djurdjevic. He's a cybersecurity and HIPAA expert. And he said that there are a number of companies who say that they're a conduit, that they're a pass-through, just like a telephone company where they don't record anything, they're not required to do HIPAA stuff. And he said it's simply not true. All of them that answer calls, they record the calls, they make schedule, they do all sorts of stuff that would need HIPAA or need to be HIPAA compliant. So just be careful that you find out if they're HIPAA compliant or not. I'm going to look at one more question, and then between voice and time of night, we're going to be done. Let's see. Terry says, what company do I like for virtual aid? I'm not a good person to ask that question because I don't have enough data on which ones are HIPAA compliant, which ones our members like enough. I can tell you can go into our Facebook group, which is oddly enough called Exit. If you're not in our Facebook group yet, you should be. So PPO Exit for Dentists. And you could just post the question and say, which virtual AI companies do you guys use and which ones do you like or not like? And I'm sure you get plenty of people who would answer that. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me. It has been a pleasure to be with you. Lots and lots of great questions. We actually had more. I assume we would have about 200. At one point, we had about 260 or 270 on. Thank you all for the continued opportunity to share the gems. As I said, Elizabeth and I really appreciate it. We appreciate you guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we will meet again soon. Take care, guys.